the stories, the journey, the wild behind the scenes, and much more. I'm Dave Anthony, and I'm the host of From Garage to Stadiums. The album 8, which is, I guess, Bob's final studio album, has Could You Be Loved, which is a great tune, but the Redemption song is a very poignant one, and that might be one of the last songs you recorded. Is that fair to say?
Yes, possibly. This may sound a bit controversial, but I knew his keyboard player, Earl Wire Lindo, pretty well. And there were rumors that he'd written Redemption song. And I asked Wire if that were true. And he said yes, he did write it, but he'd given the song to Bob because he was the singer and he didn't want to make any fuss. It's
a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And the acoustic version is just so powerful. What is Bob Marley's legacy, John? Where does his place in music history? Where will we look back and say, Bob Marley, wow, he was what will we say about his place in musical history?
He has come to symbolize the whole of reggae music, the style of reggae music, the nature of reggae music, the philosophical and spiritual backbone of reggae music, what it represents. He is the epitome of all those qualities that we now associate with reggae music. Anyone from anywhere creating a reggae song will be compared to him. Absolutely.
When we look at Dylan, we think of his influence on the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young, anyone that followed sort of wrote these very powerful songs. Who did Bob Marley directly influence, do you think? Who kind of can trace their lineage to Marley's approach and the Wailers?
I've interviewed many hundreds of reggae and dancehall artists from Jamaica and all over the world. And if I asked them who they were inspired by and who they look up to, I would say 95% of them mention Bob Marley in the first sentence.
That says a lot.
Absolutely. And that's hardcore dancehall artists as well as traditional reggae artists. And then you have all the non-reggae artists who've been inspired by him also. Truly an international figure. It's, I think in terms of importance, he must be one of the greatest musicians of the 20th century. He would be right up there with anyone else you care to mention. And we've recently seen the film, One Love movie that's come out. And
what did you think? What did you think of the movie?
I loved it, and it's the storyline was hopelessly confused. It was a love story about he and Rita, and if they'd have set that love story in the 60s and the very early 70s, it would have been beautiful. But they set it from 76 onwards, when clearly the big love interest in his life at that time was Cindy Breakspears, who wasn't mentioned in the film.
Right.
So that's pretty inexcusable. But I never thought I would see the day when I went to a mainstream cinema and the whole audience was singing along to these songs. And it was a film about a ganja-smoking Rasta artist from a Jamaican slum. I mean, really.
Right. If he were still alive, have you ever thought about what he would have done in the ensuing years?
I asked Family Man this, and he told me that they were preparing to go back to their roots and make Nyabingi music. Nyabingi is the traditional Rasta music, which is based on drums and chanting. And as they did on Rasta Man Chant from the Burning album. But
Okay.
they may well have done that. But a friend of mine went down to Jamaica one time to interview Marley, and he was intently listening to Saturday Night Fever soundtrack by the Beatles. and and when my friend said, "What are you doing?" he said, "Well, this album sold millions of copies. I want to know why." He wanted to sell records, and what we have to remember is that up until the time he died, he'd never had a hit in America. Not one. Not with black audiences, not with white audiences. And
right.
Eric Clapton had taken I Shot the Sheriff to number one in America, but Bob Marley himself couldn't get anywhere near the Billboard 100. So I think that would have been a real mission of his.
And he probably would have pulled it off too.
I think he would.
At the end of the show, we always ask our guests to come up with 3 picks of songs that the audience should give a listen to.
Simmer Down, because it's so exuberant and life-giving. It's what a debut hit. What's a debut hit? You know, and the fact that it was inspired by warring ghetto gangs and telling them to cool it down, but it was so uplifting and so joyous at the same time. It was just a magical record. I can imagine hearing it on a jukebox, you know, as you walk down a road in Kingston, and it would just have knocked you for 6. So that's one. Rebel Music, 3 O'Clock Roadblock. That's just a hymn to freedom. I mean, why can't we roam this open country? You know, why can't we be what we want to be? And the way he describes being stopped by the police, and he knows he's going to be asked for his documents and maybe searched for ganja. And to me, it will forever symbolize what it's like to live in an authoritarian society. It's brilliant. I love it, musically as well. And it
really that, you know, that theme really sets the stage for, you know, bands like NWA and others who really start to write about, you know, corrupt cops and racism and much later. But boy, Marley and crew were on this early, obviously, because of their own troubles locally that they had or faced.
And he loved associating himself, casting himself as an outlaw. He did it on I Shot the Sheriff. And, you know, he did it in that song as well. I think that was a favorite technique, if you can call it, of his. And the other one would be Redemption Song, which is so profound. And he says none of them can stop the time. In other words, you know, what will be will be. It's the ultimate expression of faith, really.
Well, your passion certainly shines through, and I want to thank you for chronicling these genres of music. It's important work, and you've done it brilliantly. John's authored Pressure Drop, Reggae in the 70s, Simmer Down, Early Wailers Story, The Story of Bob Marley's Wailers, Wailing Blues, and several other books on the genre. So again, thank you for chronicling such an important genre, and we've thoroughly enjoyed having you here today.
Thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure. And I love your podcast, and more health and strength and power in what you do.
Likewise. Thank you so much, John, for coming on.
Thank you.